In this episode of An American Entrepreneur, we're going to visit a gentleman that has a vinyl record store. He's located here in Dallas, Texas, and he's been in business for over 45 years. And this gentleman comes across somewhat lethargic, but make no mistake about it, he is a very sharp businessman. And he gives all kinds of really cool advice all throughout this video. And there's one piece of advice that I'm going to say that if the people that knew this advice that were running Blockbuster Video would still be with us today. So come on, check it out. I hope you enjoy it. Hey Bucks, how's it going?
Who knows that? Friend or foe?
Friend.
Prove it!
All right, introduce yourself.
My name is Big Bucks Burnett. I am the owner of this shoebox-sized record store, 14 Records, located at 9022 Garland Road, Dallas, Texas, in almost beautiful Casa Linda area.
So how did you come up with the name 14 Records?
When I opened my first record store, I actually bought it from a record store owner who was going to close the store down. And I loved the owner. I'll tell you about in a minute. I remember that moment because, as we were closing the deal, it's like, can I rename your store? Because your name won't work for me. He said, well, of course. And I thought, that 14 moment when I was tripping, 14 Records, it's very abstract. And here's the deal. If you can get people to ask you, why did you name your business this, regardless of what the name is or regardless what your answer is, they're thinking about the name of your business.
It's memorable.
For at least 3 seconds.
Right.
And
it makes your business stand out a little bit.
it's a very
as well.
abstract answer, but that's the truth.
Right. So how did you end up getting into the vinyl record business? It's my understanding vinyl records are really, really coming back. Have you always been in the vinyl record business, or did you just get back into it in the past 5 or 10 years?
That's the best question so far. Out of the 2 questions, that's my favorite. But that's actually a genius question.
Well, I'm a genius, but go ahead.
I kind of thought that about you. Because I'm a genius, I know another when I see it. But let's get on with my genius response. It's a very interesting story. America, you will love this story. When I was a teenager living in Oak Cliff where I was raised, my favorite record store in the world to this day, Hit Records, was at the corner of Hampton and Illinois. We lived 3 miles from there. I loved that record store so much, and kids didn't have money back then, but if I got $3.25, I could buy a record, because brand new sealed records back then, this is about 72-ish, whatever, $2.99 plus tax. That's unthinkable now. All those sealed records now would be worth thousands of dollars. But even at $3 back then, being a kid, I could only buy 1, 2, 3 records a month. So you had to make it count. So I would walk 3 miles both ways in the heat or the freezing winter air, or ride my bike or get a ride with an adult or an older person, whatever it took to get to that store once a week, because it was my mecca, my church, my favorite place on earth. The owner, a super nice man named Charles, who founded Hit Records, we hit it off as casual friends, and he liked me because, I'd come in and talk a little, but I would always buy something nearly every visit. That's why I went in, was to buy something. And the reason I mentioned that, this goes on for about a year and a half, and this guy was like a hero to me. Because in the 70s, to put it in the context where there were no computers, no phones, no computer games, there was about 1,000% less media. That meant something like music or a book or a movie could take up way more space in the entertainment landscape, and also more space in your mind and in your schedule. Now, the same great music has about 1 million new competitors for people's attention. But in spite of all that, people are rediscovering the magic of listening to a record all the way through. I discovered that magic because of Hit Records, but I'll get to the point of mentioning my first and favorite record store. After about a year and a half, I think I went in there and bought like the latest record by King Crimson for $3.11 or something. All right, thanks, Charles. See you next week. It says, my real name is James. My name was Big Bucks, but back then it was just James. He said, James, I have a question before you leave. And I said, yeah, what's that? And he said, how would you like to work here part-time? But I don't understand why you're offering it to me instead of a grown-up. And he said the nicest thing in the world. I'll never forget it. He looked at me and said, James, I've been watching you for 2 years. You're one of my favorite people, one of my favorite customers. People are drawn to you. And you remember last week when you were talking about older businessman in a suit, and he said something kind of snooty about your long hair, but you kind of turned it into a joke, and you was picking up an album by so-and-so, and you just looked at him and said, hey, excuse me, sir, thanks again for the comment about my hair, but I promise I'll get it longer for you. And he kind of, but I said, if you like that artist, dude, let me be your friend. This guy would be perfect. This band would also be perfect for you. And then you walked away and started flipping the records. Do you know what that gentleman did? I said, I don't even know who you're talking about. He said, that's because you do this without trying. You just talk to strangers and suggest stuff for me out of your natural, helpful nature, and you walk off and you forget the person. That guy bought 2 records that day, the one he was picking out and the one you told him to buy.
Cool.
You're a natural born salesman and you don't even know it. Plus, I wouldn't tell you this unless I meant it, because I'm not going to hire somebody just to make them feel good. I'm going to hire somebody that I truly believe in and think can help me.
Right.
James, you need to realize something and give yourself some credit. I said, what's that? He said, the reason I'm asking you first, and you were absolutely my first choice, and I've had tons of people beg me to work here, I'm asking you. You don't realize something. You are ready at your age. What are you, 15? I said, yes. He said, you already know much more about music than probably 90% of my grown-up customers, that you would say. And you put records in their hands and they buy them, and then you forget about it.
So how did you end up becoming an entrepreneur versus just getting a job working for somebody?
Well, after my first job at Hit Records, which lasted about a year, I got a job at the mall at a bigger record store, and then I got a job offer at a gigantic and amazing store called Peaches, which was the size of Kroger with 50 full-time employees. By that time, I was 77. I'm in high school, and back then there were these chains of giant record stores. Records were selling zillions of copies. It was the heyday of the music industry. It's never been matched since. But you had these gigantic grocery stores with 100,000 records, 50 full-time employees. Think about that. So I got hired at the biggest, coolest record store in Dallas. So I kept working my way up, and the more experience you got, the better offers you would get. And then I was working at some other record store, and up in Denton, Texas, I would go visit a friend of mine that lived there. He turned me on to this really cool little indie record store called Saved Sounds. And it was ran by this really cool local Denton, Dallas musician named Larry Randall. Super nice guy. Now, he mainly sold Christian music and Christian rock, which I wasn't into. But he has a few boxes of used records that were secular or non-religious. Right. Every now and then I found a Led Zeppelin or Pink Floyd at Saved Sounds for $2 or $3, and he wasn't charging much because to him secular records were not what his customers wanted. Yeah. But even though he's not a Christian, I loved Larry. We became really good friends, like I did with Charles earlier at Hit Records. And I just love that place, man. I love Larry. And we became friends. So anyway, went in one day and he said, I'm sorry to tell you this, I'm closing the store in 3 months. I said, why? I'm just not making enough money. And to make a long story short, we had a conversation about how I was brokenhearted and he was my hero. And he said, well, what if I sell you the business instead of close it? without going into details. Within 30 minutes, we shook hands.
You owned a record store.
Somebody loaned me some money. He loaned me some money. I paid him off years. Dude, 2 months later, he handed me the key. I reopened Saved Sounds. Then I put the Christian rock in the discount boxes for $1 each. And I already had a bunch of records in my collection. I put my whole collection, sacrificed it for my inventory, and changed it to 14 records because of the ridiculous name. And that's how I started.
So 14?
Opened 14 records September 1st, 1988, after buying it from Larry Randall, owner of Saved Sounds.
And you've been in business all this time.
I've been doing this since the day I was hired at Hit Records. This is my 45th year of serving the public by selling music.
So were you also ever selling compact discs? Did
Yes.
you get into that as well? Okay.
Yes, because by the late 80s and early 90s, it didn't matter how you felt about compact disc or records. If you didn't have at least a couple hundred good used CDs to sell, that's started being more and more important. The less CDs you had. See, I bought it at 88, not knowing I was right at the beginning of the death of vinyl. So I spent the next 3 years buying more and more used CDs, trying to find the mix. And to make a long story short, I moved the store from Denton to Dallas, Lower Greenville Avenue, from 91 to 95. And I saw the writing on the wall. I had to convert to a used CD store with barely any vinyl or clothes. And I was making enough money to stay in business. And I honestly thought, I don't want to be just one of the 100 used record stores in Dallas selling the same stuff as everybody else. Records are more unique than CDs. And I just voluntarily closed my store. It was heartbreaking, but it would be more of a compromise to just be like every other CD store in Dallas. Did that answer your question?
Oh, yeah. So as far as the vinyl records, what are your typical customers, age group or whatever? What's your typical customer that walks in here?
My average age of my demographic surprises a lot of people. 2/3 of my paying customer, the people that keep me alive and keep the store in business, are 15 to 30, mostly 15 to 25. That's who's buying music.
Vinyl.
And music stores and the music industry has always been a youth-driven industry. It's the way it's supposed to be. But I love that these kids, and they don't get enough credit, especially from my generation. They know a lot about music from the 20s and 30s on up. I have a 17-year-old or a 19-year-old once a week come up and buy Miles Davis, Sex Pistols, Led Zeppelin, and Louis Armstrong. They're all over the map. They just like great music. When I was coming up, if you liked rock, you weren't allowed to like soul or disco or country. And it was serious boundaries. Those boundaries are gone, and they should be gone. These kids not only buy the records, they go online or read books. They know a lot about the history of every artist they're buying. They don't get the credit they deserve.
Well, how are they discovering this music? Through their parents, would you say? Or how
Well,
are they
a lot of
discovering
times it's
it?
parents or friends. Vast majority is through streaming.
Okay, because this is some old music when you talk about Sex
Yes.
Pistols and
I-
Miles
listen,
Davis.
A smart business owner doesn't just talk to his customers. It's more important to listen to his customers.
Right.
How do you find out about this band? It's questions like that. Because it's to my advantage, but it's just fun too to talk to them and listen to them. As old people used to say, people as old as me, I like to talk to the kids. But they are streaming, say, 1,000 songs in part a whole in a month. Statistics have shown, and what I've heard from my customers backs it up. They may fall in love with 100 bands, and they'll stream those the rest of their life. But say the 5 or 10 bands they fall in love with the most that month, they go out and buy on LP or CD or download. Streaming is driving the sales of physical music. Streaming is keeping record stores in business. They help each other. They're not enemies like most people think.
So why would someone buy a vinyl record versus just download the song in an MP4?
The difference between the quality of the sound quality, as we call it, the depth, the richness, the fullness, the clarity, is like 10 million times better, literally, on a vinyl LP than an MP3. I can't even listen to MP3s.
Really?
They sound too bad, too horrible, and tinny and cheap to me. But I never put them down because that's how a lot of people fall in love with great music. To each their own.
Right.
But it just doesn't work for me. But for a while, this, all throughout history, whether it's pop culture or this or that, the pendulums of history
Swing
back and forth. Well, for 15 years, from 1990 to 2005 exactly, I was working in the stores. I was there. Those are the exact years. The death of the LP was 1990. It didn't start bubbling again back to life until 2006. 15 years, 90 to 2005. The pendulum swung completely to digital. Then starting in 2006, slowly started swinging back to analog and physical. And month by year, as I was working at a record store that had 50,000 LPs and I was a vinyl manager, saw the records started selling again. And it's because they were hearing MP3s or whatever, and it was mainly young people. And I thought it was too good to be true, but people started buying records again. So I started asking mainly young people, why do you want a record instead of a CD? Well, I found some records in my dad's closet, and I said, Dad, what are these? He told me they're called LPs or records or albums. And I opened the cover, and it blew my mind. It's like a giant book with this giant round piece of music. I'd never imagined such a thing, because all I'd ever heard was MP3s. They're beautiful, they're amazing. Why would I not want this? Look
And
at
a lot
this
of
cover.
artwork back then.
And they, just as I loved the classic album covers by Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and Grateful Dead growing up, they're having the same response. And that art, compared to their generation, or even if they were raised on CDs with little booklets, how are they discover it? They're discovering these gigantic things called records,
Right.
which if you'd never seen it, seems extra big to them. And they just started falling in love, and they had to have them. They love the physicality of it, love putting a record on the turntable, and it's just been picking up
It's kind
steam
of an
ever
event
since.
almost.
Yeah.
When you take an LP out and you clean the dust off of it,
Yeah.
put it on, put the needle on.
It's a lot
How-
more interesting than putting a
Right.
couple of buds in your ears.
Right. How are you curating your inventory nowadays? Is there a lot of brand new printings coming on, or are you buying a lot of used stuff from people?
Every year, the number of brand new, freshly manufactured records, they're making them right now. And they're called 180s because they weigh 180 grams, almost twice as much as records used to weigh. So they're thicker and heavier. The covers are thicker and heavier. They sell for like $35 to $40, which is way too much for a new record, in my opinion. But every year, the amount manufactured doubles and the sales doubles. But that's a whole separate part of the industry than what I do. It's a booming part of the industry, and it's very important. But here's the deal. I buy a lot of new reissues of old Pink Floyd's, new remasters, as they call them, where they've improved the sound. But they print the covers perfectly and so forth. A lot of them are extremely well done. That's a reproduction of history, and that's great. I want the actual piece of history for myself and my customers. So the Pink Floyd remaster for $35 might actually sound better or sound as good, but it'll never have the history
Right.
of the copy I have that was actually manufactured the year it came out. And a lot of teenagers tell me, they always word it differently, but it's basically the same thing. I'll ask them, why are you spending like $200 on this first pressing of Led Zeppelin 2? You can buy 180 for $35. Cut my throat.
Right.
I want to find out what you're thinking. This is what I heard so many times. I believe it. They basically say, I know the reissue's cheaper, but I want the version of the record exactly like the day it came out. That's the exact phrase I've heard again and again and again. I want it to be the one just like the day it came out, the very first version. Now, why is that important to them? I don't know.
Well, people like the real deal, whatever it
I'm
is.
talking like 15-year-olds are
Right.
telling me this.
Yeah. What are some of the other challenges? I guess it's to really curate a lot of good, desirable, original LPs.
Well, that's actually what my store is known best for, the curation. Everybody says there's some music in here I don't like, but unlike every other record store in Dallas, dude, you don't have any junk or filler. This is all classic, important stuff. They tell me, I don't tell them. They look around for 15 minutes and they're just freaking out. They've never been in a store that only has good records. No
Right,
filler,
there's-
no junk.
There's a few larger vinyl record stores here in Dallas, but I've noticed they're larger, but they have an awful lot of filler or records that nobody wants. No, but you've got a collection that's just totally amazing. As I walk through here, it's just all of it is top shelf.
I have a
stuff.
very strict policy for every single record in these racks. It must have a reason to be in my store. Period. It's very simple. It's got to matter to somebody for at least one reason, even if it doesn't mean anything to me. And if I can't come up with a reason, I don't put it out. I give it away or throw it away.
So do you have a lot of people coming in here with their used albums trying to sell them to you?
Yeah, as well they should, because I pay far more. This is not hype. I really do pay far more than every other town in Dallas. I pay very fairly and generously.
Right.
I put many things into my offer, but one of the things is, what am I going to price it at? How long is it going to sell? How many do I have? How long will it take me to replace if it sells? And that means instead of just $1 or $2 each like everybody else, I've paid as high as $100 and $200 wholesale cash to a customer for more collectible records. That's why I hope they'll come to me first, so I can have a chance to treat them right. And it helps. There's a selfish side to it. I want to be the first guy to cherry pick a box of these records, because that's how you get the best
reputation.
stuff. You don't want to be the second place they go
Right.
to. That means the other guy got the best stuff and rip them off.
Right. Your reputation precedes you. People don't realize how important that is. As far as some of these records you have up here, these albums, what are some of your most prized records that you really treasure? That if someone bought it, you would go, golly, I kind of really hated to sell that one.
I think I see what you're asking me. Gotcha. Well, you don't ask the easy questions. You're throwing the hard balls. I like this. You're keeping me on my toes. I have a white album up there. They individually numbered all the white albums. The lower, for the first 2 or 3 years only, they stopped numbering them in 1970. To get to the point, the more valuable white albums are the UK copies, superior and more beautiful in construction. They numbered about 2 million copies in England until 70. I have the White Album UK copy up there, number 404. That's out of 2 million numbered copies. That's what I call a first day White Album. I'm asking $10,000 for that. Another one would be this Velvet Underground with the banana. That's a historic album cover. It was designed by Andy Warhol. Velvet Underground are one of the most influential rock bands of all time. That was their first album. Andy Warhol designed the cover. That banana is a peelable sticker, which you can pull off and put on over and over again. When you peel it off, there's just a pink banana. So a lot of copies are missing the sticker.
Right, yeah.
But they're usually trashed. That was in perfect condition. So I'm asking $2,000 for that. Okay. And I would miss that if I'm going to raise the price on that. That's too cheap.
Right.
At $2,000, I'll regret it. At $5,000, I'll part with it and live with it.
Well, as far as the day-to-day task of having a record store, what is something that you just really don't like to do more than anything, but you have to do because you own this record shop?
Can I be honest? Like,
Sure.
really honest?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to be honest. Mm-hmm. Get out of this gorgeous beat-up red
That's a cool retro
chair.
chair. by
This is
the
a
way.
beautiful
Very
chair.
cool chair.
Found this on the curb about 2 months ago. Yeah, I do not like getting out of this chair for any reason.
So if you have
But I
to
gotta
get
do it.
up, you're like, damn.
Because I'm a full service guy. I don't. If somebody says, "Hey, where's your Floyd section?" I don't say it's right there. I get up and I take them to the section.
Right, you don't just point
You
where it's at.
escort. You don't
Right.
point.
Right.
Let me show you. Here it is. Look at it for yourself. Here's the
The Beatles White Album.
number 404. This is a first day White album. This is beyond historic. This is beyond comprehension. it's extraordinarily rare in any country for a triple-digit number to ever even be found for sale. I have 3 of them. I also own copy number 18.
Could you grab that Andy Warhol, the one with the banana? That show that one?
No.
Okay, leave it up there.
No, we're not going to take
You
it
might
down.
drop it.
I appreciate it. Because
I get it, it's
after
fine.
we finish filming, I got to get out of this red chair to put them back on the wall.
Okay, no, Chris, that's what Chris is for.
Yeah.
Look at him. So you named the last Who record. Where is that one? Would you show it to us?
Sure.
You got to get out of your chair.
You're killing me.
When was this one? When was?
This came out in December 2019, and I've known Pete Townsend for 40 years, so we email a lot. And I emailed him about 2 years ago, casually. Hey Pete, what you doing, dude? He emailed me back and said, "Oh, just writing a lot of demos. Hey, I'll go ahead and let you know it's not public yet. We're gonna put out our first album in 13 years, and we're aware a lot of the fans haven't really been thrilled with our last 6 or 7 records over the past 30 years. So we're gonna get everything we've got and try and make another classic Who album." I said, "Well, go for it. Good luck." Hey, off the top of my head, Pete, I got an idea for a title. You've had Who's Next, which is a classic Who album. Your first solo album was called Who Are You? What if you just call this one Who? I made some little memes with the word Who in all caps, showing them how well the title would work with just about any image. And he emailed me back 10 minutes later and said, "I love this title. I think we're going to do it."
And if you doubt this, you can go to his website and you can see the video of Pete Townsend telling the world this gentleman named this album.
That would be
Really cool.
That would be 14 records spelled
Dallas,
out.
Texas.
The word 14, not the number, followed by records.com. And it's real easy to find the very interview of Pete acknowledging my naming of this record, which, by the way, most people don't know that up until this point, the Who had never had a #1 record album on any chart in any country on this planet, Earth. This was a surprise smash hit because they made another classic. This was their first #1 album in England and America. I named the first #1 Who album. I've seen the Who every tour since 1973 till now. So I'm a lifer,
Right.
and I'm friends with Pete, but I never dreamed that I would name a Who album.
That's very
That's
cool.
crazy good.
Such a super.
And for him to send me the
rocker.
video thanking me was extraordinary. He didn't have to do that.
I'll be honest with you, I would have doubted the story a little bit
Yeah.
had I not seen that video myself.
Well,
And,
I've seen the video myself. I still don't believe it's true. I don't ever want to believe it's true to make it less fun. I really.
So when you gonna
I'm
have?
not- Can I just say something? I'm not a big fan of reality.
Okay.
I prefer something being so cool you can't believe it ever.
So
Right? That's
how-
what I'm about.
So how often has Pete Townsend made it out over here to your record store, or any of the stores you've owned?
Never.
What an ass.
The English have another word for it. It starts with C. That's all I'll say. I had a
What,
good time.
what would you like to share the next couple of minutes about your store, about the business, about maybe encouraging other entrepreneurs to start a business? What kind of
Well,
advice
first
would
of
you
all,
give?
if you're really smart, if you're a really intelligent person, want to make a lot of money, you want to open a record store, just don't do one thing. Don't open the record store because you're going to bleed money for 2 years unless you're already rich. That's what I did, but I'm still here. But if you do, good luck. Got to be brave, got to be creative, and always think of new ideas. As trends change, you don't have to follow them, but you do have to change your business model constantly to keep it working. That's the way I survive, is changing my business model. Delete something, add something new. But really, you just have to really want it more than life itself and be willing to not only work, but sacrifice a lot of time, sell a lot of stuff you thought you'd never sell, because you're going to lose money for a year or two guaranteed. So you better have some money. I still don't know how I survived the first year of this. But when there's a will, there's a way.
Right.
What was the rest of the question?
That was really it. I just
Well, in closing, can I just extend a casual invitation to whoever the heck is watching this?
please do.
Hi. It's a fact. Trust me, I would know better than anyone. 14 Records is Dallas's least known, least popular, least profitable record store in Dallas. Period. Guaranteed. And I'm working hard to keep it that way. However, if you must make me more popular and make me rich, come to see me. Just call 1-800-GOOGLE. They'll tell you where I'm at. 14 Records on Garland Road in Dallas, Texas. I've got the best condition records on earth. I've got 100 Led Zeppelins, vintage, 100 Pink Floyds, 100 Dylan, 100 Frank Zappas, incredible rare punk rock, jazz, blues, country, great sell sections. I got $10,000 records. I got 10 records ready for the bargain hunter and the snooty rich collector and the guy in between. And my job, more importantly than selling people a record, is to have a great vibe in here
And, you
and for
do
people
that
to have
for
a
sure.
great time in their visit, whether they buy in here or not. And I really mean this. What matters more to me as the owner of all these records than all the value of the record combined is the vibe of the store. Do people, everybody that walks in, ideally, I want them to feel 1% better walking out than when they walked in.
Cool.
Whether they buy anything
Really
or not.
cool.
And I really mean that. So, Dallas, stop ignoring me, bitches. Come see me. And for God's sake, would it kill you to just come by and buy something, even if you hate music? Do it for me, if not for yourself. Was that crass?
No, thanks a lot,
I
Buck.
thought it was crass.
Perfect.
Oh, wait, I am crass. Thanks for...
Big Bucks was a lot of fun in this video. And I want to tell you that the biggest takeaway in this video was when Big Bucks talked about the years that he's been in business. Sometimes you have to remove things, add things to adjust for the changing times. There's no way you can be in the vinyl record business and in business this long if you aren't really good at adapting to this kind of change. And I've got a video called Don't Let Change End Your Business. That's what it talks more about. So whether you've been in business for 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years, and you're really doing really well, make no mistake about it, change is always coming, and always be looking ahead, looking at your industry, because eventually your business, your service will be obsolete. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So stay really in tune with what's going on in your industry, and you'll be able to survive maybe 45 years. I'm Curtis Mulberg. I hope this video added value. Thanks for watching.